Lions upset the Chiefs, and maybe a little bit of a stalemate to open up the NFL season. Definitely a game that I thought was going to be a shootout, but once the game started to play out, I was like, whoa, take way under on this. And obviously take way under on Patrick Mahomes' passing yards. A lot of the shootout aspects that we thought this game was going to have, it simply just didn't play out that way. And really, the closer we got to this game, the more I wanted to pick Detroit. They got the revamped roster, the defense, all of the hype around them. You have no Chris Jones, no Travis Kelce we hear about right before the game. They're on the road, and even against the number one offense, the champs, the MVP, the Super Bowl MVP, the best coach, they upset Kansas City on the road. And let's just go ahead and get kind of the dirtiness out of the way. We got to leave it up to the NFL, right, to allow false starts multiple times throughout this game with Jawaan Taylor. And for everyone kind of wondering why people are talking about that, when he was lining up a couple yards behind the line of scrimmage, it was giving an unfair advantage or unfair disadvantage to the defensive lineman because they have to run further to get to the point of attack in a block. Just to call it at the very end for the false start on Jawaan Taylor, from the Super Bowl to the season opener, it just never fails with the refs, right? And of course, maybe me, a Saints fan, saying that, but just be realistic and look at how the officiating has played out year over year over year in the league. I remember right as the game was about to come on, I was just talking about the refs with my lady, and I was like, I hope they're not horrible this year like they've been before. But turns out that maybe nothing has changed, but nothing horrible, right? Like we've seen in the past with NFL officiating. Of course, the big story of the game was Travis Kelce. We hear about him on Tuesday at about 2:30 in the afternoon. The report breaks. He hyperextends his knee. He got up by himself, walked off the field in practice, which was good. They were going to retest it Wednesday to see if he was good to go Thursday. Clearly, he was not. And so they had no Travis Kelce walking into this game, and people were wondering, does Andy Reid, who is great on opening day, does Patrick Mahomes, who is great on opening day, the Chiefs, who are good on opening day since I think 2004, 2008, somewhere around there, how were they going to be with their realistically second best player, their second best offensive player outside of Patrick Mahomes, and really his favorite target, that security blanket that we always know quarterbacks have in a tight end. But let's also keep it in context as well before we actually get into the Travis Kelce part. This was a drop pass that was turned into a pick six, and then their second and arguably third best player were missing in this game, speaking of the Kansas City Chiefs, and they still only lost by one at home. The Chiefs offense outscored Detroit's offense, and the Chiefs defense held Detroit's offense to just 14 points per game. I feel like if you would have told Andy Reid or would have asked any of us, hey, the Chiefs defense is going to hold that elite top 5 Lions offense that we saw ending the season last year, who's even more comfortable now, who have a really clean offensive line. Going to get into that a little bit later in the show. Jared Goff was virtually untouchable. He was very, very protected last night in the pocket. If you would have told the Chiefs defense, though, that they were going to hold that elite Lions offense to 14, they probably would have told you that they were going to win the game comfortably. But when you saw Travis Kelce going in, again, missing this game, it absolutely showed. Patrick Mahomes had 7 completions to 7 different receivers. Kadarius Toney had 3 drops. And Kadarius Toney's never a guy that I really believed in a whole lot. I thought he was a reach in the NFL draft when he was taken by the Giants. I know he had literally the longest Super Bowl punt return in NFL history to now not even being able to catch a pass, and ultimately that turning into a pick six, which was very costly. Brian Branch, of course, the rookie out of Alabama, clearly the best safety in the draft, making the play. A sockless rookie, Brian Branch, at that. And that's a fine in the NFL, by the way. I wonder what the league said to him after that game. But the rookie Sky Moore had a drop. Jarrett McKinnon, the running back, had a drop as well. And you have the Chiefs out here doing things with the offense like Kadarius Toney losing yards on a jet sweep on a 2nd and 1, which turned that potential touchdown drive into a field goal. You have Rashee Rice losing yardage later on in the game after getting a handoff from a direct snap to Blake Bell, which that kind of feels like that play was pulled specifically out of the Travis Kelce, really like the Travis Kelce package that the Chiefs and Andy Reid had put together on a 3rd and 1 reverse, turning a first down into a punt. Speaking of that direct snap to Blake Bell, hands it off to Rashee Rice. It's a reverse on 3rd and 1. What could have been a potential first down turns into a punt. And then to go for it on 4th and 20, this was when it kind of stuck out to me because I'm like, damn, Andy Reid, like, I get it. You're ballsy. You go for it on 4th. You can convert, things are, kind of working out for you well, or at least they usually do when you do go for it on 4th down. For him to go for it on 4th and 20 on his own 35, 2 minutes left and 3 timeouts left. And I'll give it to Mahomes, right? He put it in the receiver's hands. scrambled out to the right, broke the pocket, threw a nice dot over the middle of the field deep, probably about a 22-yard completion it looked like, and the receiver dropped it. I can't remember who that was. Maybe it was Kadarius Toney, but nonetheless, it was a drop. Mahomes was 21 for 39 in this game as well, so a roughly 50% completion. If those 5 drops are caught, Patrick Mahomes is back up to his usual 67% completion. So I believe if the Chiefs win this game with 67% completion, 226 yards, and a couple touchdowns and a pick from Mahomes, we're not nearly looking at it as bad as we do from, of course, a losing standpoint. But even Andy Reid's creativity was very weird. And at one point, he literally took the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands, the best player in the NFL, the best quarterback in the NFL, the 6th best quarterback of all time, 2-time MVP, coming off of the Super Bowl championship, Super Bowl MVP. That's when I knew it was a little different for Andy Reid. Maybe Andy Reid was like, ooh, I don't know if I've been here before, at least in this situation with Patrick Mahomes, because, and it's going back to that direct snap to Blake Bell, handoff to Rashee Rice. Very weird, very, very weird to take the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands on a really crucial late third down at that. So just, speaking on the offense there a little bit, but now on into the defensive side of the ball, or really Chris Jones's absence. It definitely looked to be felt. Just 1 sack from Kansas City. And like I said, Jared Goff had a clean pocket, really nice pocket most of the night, mistake-free football. So that clearly reflected in his play. And to sit here and had a good offensive line for Jared Goff, that Jared Goff was comfortable in a Detroit Lions pocket. That feels kind of weird to say. And that just goes back to this entire NFL season is going to be amazing. We're going to have so many teams come out of the woodworks that we probably weren't expecting. Y'all are flipping the hell out about my power rankings, which I'm not trying to have hot takes. That's just who I genuinely think are going to be the top 15 teams in the NFL. Now let's transition over to the Detroit Lions here. And look, their defense on paper coming into this game, the way they played, they really have that potential to perform with a CJ Gardner-Johnson, with a Jack Campbell, with a Brian Branch, with an Aiden Hutchinson. And God, just sit here and think, what if they would have taken Jalen Carter or Nolan Smith over a Jack Campbell? My God, the Lions defense would be absolutely insane. You got Alex Anzalone. I even forgot to mention Cam Sutton as well. And Aiden Hutchinson balled the hell out. 6 pressures, which was a career high for him. 3 quarterback hits in the backfield, and he was through that line a ton. I feel like every other play, realistically, or every few plays, Aiden Hutchinson was back there. We saw Mahomes running around it. Kind of gave you that feel of when the Chiefs went to the Super Bowl against the Bucs, but just didn't have an O-line at all. But nonetheless, Mahomes is still able to have a way better game than he did in that Super Bowl. I liked what I saw from David Montgomery as well. His workload was very nice. You can tell they're still trying to understand where Jahmyr Gibbs is going to fit in and really what type of package he's really going to be in. But you saw he can clearly be a problem. He's got the breakaway speed. 9 total touches for 62 yards in terms of Jahmyr Gibbs. And then David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs combined for 26 yards, 28 carries, 116 yards, 1 touchdown. And I'm telling you guys, Jahmyr Gibbs is literally going to be like that boy right there, number 41 on the jersey that I just added to the backdrop. You guys already know. You've seen it. You already seen the Saints hat here tapped in. You already know we're talking Saints at the end of the show. Look at me so toxic, bringing up one thing relating to a player about the Saints, and I'm totally off the point. Anywho, Jahmyr Gibbs, he can be an Alvin Kamara type of player. He can be that Austin Eckler, that CMC type of back, but with Tyreek Hill speed. And it's going to be disgusting once Dan Campbell actually gets a nice package going for him. Once Jared Goff gets comfortable, once the offensive coordinator for the Lions is really going to be able to implement Jahmyr Gibbs the way he wants to and needs to. And like we mentioned, that Chiefs offense, very stale. They missed their best targets for Mahomes, but the defense for the Chiefs, without Chris Jones, stood up to the test and shut down an elite Lions offense, held them to 14 points. So we can realistically all sit here and say if Kadarius Toney catches that pass, then we're probably having a completely different conversation, but we're going to have those types of what ifs in the NFL season plenty of times to go on. And like I said, that Lions defense earlier on in the segment, and even now as we're still discussing it, they made some plays with their new additions. Again, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. You saw Jack Campbell make some plays. I love Brian Branch, new nice safety duo there. I love how they turn over the safeties and they made some plays. I love how they turn over the running back room and the Lions make some plays there as well. But again, a drop pass turned into a pick 6 and 14 points from the offense definitely makes me want to see more out of this team. And you got to have the respect for Dan Campbell, right? That grinded out type of mentality. You can't not have respect for that fake punt that he pulled first time, I think, since 2019 that someone has pulled a fake punt inside their 20-yard line. Last team was the Baltimore Ravens. They're a second half team, just like last year. Last year they start 1-6. They end the season 8-2 to finish with a 9-8 record, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, making sure I did my math there correctly. And that's what they did as well. They go in trailing 14-7. They get the pick six off Mahomes. Obviously, they only hold the Chiefs to a field goal, so that's impressive. That's impressive, I will say. Again, it was a little disappointing. It kind of felt like a stalemate, and as the game got closer, I wanted to pick the Detroit Lions. I 100% wanted to pick the Lions going into that game, and as the game played out, I was like, maybe I put a little too much faith into Mahomes with no weapons because Kelsey wasn't there, and I'm not buying in on an MVS or a Sky Moore or a Rashee Rice or a Kadarius Toney because they're unproven. Maybe, yes, you can give some credit to MVS and Kadarius Toney. Sky Moore just came in last year. Rashee Rice, rookie this year, clearly. You want to know who led the Kansas City Chiefs in receptions? Isaiah Pacheco with 4. No tight end or wide receiver in this game, I want to say, had over 2 to 3 receptions. Kadarius Toney, 0 yards. So it was interesting to see how it played out here for the Kansas City Chiefs. I was saying that the Lions on paper definitely look like that team that can have that really top 5 to 10 defense in the NFL. I mean, just go look at their depth chart. Aiden Hutchinson, CJ Gardner-Johnson, Jack Campbell, Alex Anzalone, Brian Branch. Just those 5 guys there. Let them mess around and make a move at the trade deadline if they really want to lock that defense up in an NFC. I could definitely see it happening.